Well, good evening, everyone. We are so glad that you made it onto this call tonight. I am thrilled that Dr. Corson is here with us, as always, because she is just a wealth of information and knowledge. And most of you already know her background. She is a classically trained physician, but she also has did I remember correctly, Dr. Corson, that you have a master's in natural,
No,
what was it called?
no, no, I don't have any
So,
other degrees after my MD. I thought that was enough.
okay. Okay.
But I
Well, I
started
don't blame you
studying
there.
I started studying nutrition and nutritional medicine about 25 years ago because we don't get it in medical school.
There you go. There you go. And that's part of the reason that I've invited her to speak with us tonight, because there is such a link between our immune system and the strength of our immune system and the way we eat. So, Dr. Corson, I'm just going to let you take it from there because I have a feeling you already have a foundation that you can give us to help us intelligently listen to some of the stories we're going to be hearing tonight.
It is a pleasure to do this together, Nina, and we're going to hear some wonderful stories that will uplift and inspire and give information and hope, I think, to a lot of people tonight and also who get to hear the recording. So thank you for doing that. So I think the most important central point that I'd like to share, and many of you know this, but not everybody knows it yet, and they love knowing about it, is that the thermostat for our immune system, or the central control of it, is our gut. And our gut, and a lot of people are learning about this now, is a place where many trillions of germs live, and they're supposed to be there, especially the good guys, the good ones. And there are thousands of species of important ones that are supposed to be there together and really living symbiotically and doing all kinds of things to the point where it's beyond our understanding. What we're learning a little bit more every day. And the collection of these all together, you could call it your inner ecology. And the scientific name the past several years is the microbiome. So microbe meaning little tiny guys, and biome, living community. So the microbiome is something you'll hear, and if you look, you'll probably see it very often now in articles. It's extremely important. And we get damage inadvertently to our microbiome many times before birth, and then definitely during the birth process, many times, and after birth. So, for example, a baby that needs to be born by C-section is at a huge disadvantage already. It's wonderful that we can do a C-section in the right circumstance. That's a blessing. But they don't get the pathway down the vaginal healthy birth canal that gives them the right microbiome. And that sets them up for success when they have the right microbiome. It's on purpose, it's nature's plan. So when they miss that, they're at a disadvantage. However, in today's modern world, where we're learning more about ancient things and about how the earth and our life really works, our life system on this planet, many doctors are now learning that they can replace that missing microbiome by putting some of that good bacteria from the mommy into the baby's mouth, as it would be normally. So that's one example. It may be very striking if you've never heard that, but it's big, and sometimes when we see people, it's nobody's fault, but they may have a long history of challenges with autoimmune illness. There are many factors, many environmental factors, but sometimes you see the strike one, strike two, strike three. So for example, strike one, C-section. Yes, it's a blessing. We're never going to not want that in the right circumstance. It's also why it shouldn't be overused. But strike two is often the first dose of antibiotics. First dose of antibiotics under age 1 doubles the lifetime risk of asthma. Why? Because we've knocked out good germs that we need desperately to have a strong, healthy life and a strong, healthy immune system. And we've become inflamed now. And that's what asthma is. It's an inflammatory state. And it is very much contributed to by the use of antibiotics. Again, antibiotics in the right setting are a blessing. It's just that we don't want to overuse them. We don't want to use them when it's not the right thing to do. And we're always going to have damage that we need to repair as best we can after antibiotics. So that is often strike two. So strike one would be C-section, strike two would be antibiotics, strike three is the subsequent antibiotics or environmental problems. And again, everybody's trying to do their best that they can, so there's no blame here. It's just wonderful that many mamas and grandmas and grandpas and dads these days want to learn more about that so they can be proactive, and that's what we're about, if that makes sense. So the central point is we want to protect our microbiome, and we don't want to be having heavy metals, mercury, microplastics, pesticides, dioxins in our food, water, air, which have been coming in by the hundreds of thousands of foreign to nature molecules from industry. We don't want to have that continue and get worse and worse, where we're now measuring many foreign to nature substances in the baby's cord blood at birth. We want to be aware of that, but also we want to do the things we can do to proactively help our gut microbiome and in a reparative way as best we can. And here's where the happy news lies. What we're going to talk about tonight is the role of adding more plants. Add more plants is the name of the game, because guess what? These good little guys, the ones that we need, they are only plant eaters. They are all vegan. It doesn't mean that we all have to be a strict vegan, but it means we need a wide rainbow of different plants every day to feed the different kinds of good germs that we need, if that makes sense. And the wider the rainbow, the more diversity you can have in your gut of the good guys, so they can work together and be strong against the bad guys. And the more that you have a regulation of your inflammatory pattern. Because the bottom line is, when we lose our good germs, we become upregulated in inflammation. We become inflamed. When you lose your good germs, you become inflamed. And I mean, a classic situation that I learned from about 20 some years ago was a patient I saw that was referred from another city to see me. I was doing consultations in functional medicine. And she had really been a well person for her whole life. She was 45. And she had been doing fine until she developed very severe asthma and could not get that better. And what had happened? So you always ask what happened. She had a bad wreck, and she had broken bones that were open, the skin above it, which is called an open fracture. So that's bone tissue open to the world. Super bad situation. You have to have intravenous antibiotics for a long time to deal with that. That's what happened to her. So high dose antibiotics, usually sometimes 6 weeks of intravenous antibiotics. And after that, her asthma began, which she did not have before. I've seen that pattern. That's an extreme example, but I've seen variations of that over and over. Why? Because she lost her good germs. She lost her thermostat to control her inflammatory reaction throughout the day, every day, and she developed asthma. So what we want to do is add good foods for the good germs. They need to eat every day. They don't need to eat on Sunday. They need to eat every day. And that's why a functional food concentrate that brings more plants into the body in a safe, proven way makes a difference and is proven to help human immune function at all ages. So I'll stop there so we can hear some wonderful stories, Nina.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Dr. Corson. There's so much about what you just said that informs my own journey in life and how I got to where I am. And I'll talk about that more in a minute. But first, I'd like us to hear from Debbie Lightfoot. I know she's on here somewhere. Debbie, if you could unmute yourself.
Hey.
Are you there? There you are.
Am.
There's Debbie. I wanted Debbie to talk tonight because Debbie's actually in the throes of dealing with a long-term infection. And especially, Debbie has a very thorough research background herself in so many of these issues. So Debbie, tell us your story.
Okay. I talked to Nina earlier, so it's a little bit hard to compact all my story, but I'm going to include a little bit of my Juice Plus story as we go along. So we started on Juice Plus about 7 years ago, and we're very haphazard and consistent about it. And then my son, after his freshman year in college, came home and he had to have his appendix removed, and in that they found out he had Crohn's. He had some severe abscesses. So talking about antibiotics, he was on IV antibiotics for probably 9 straight months. Had to have Crohn's resection surgery. But after the surgery, they were telling us that he could not have any raw fruits or vegetables and not very many cooked ones for up to 6 months. Well, by this time I had dive deep into what we really needed to do for him. And I thought, this is not going to work. And so, but I felt confident after listening to all the doctors that I had listened to, that it would be safe to give him Juice Plus. So even in the hospital, day after surgery, I started giving him Juice Plus. And he had no issues with it whatsoever. And 6 months post-surgery, he was in remission. And we're still probably recovering from almost an entire year of antibiotics. But he's doing amazingly well considering all that he went through. And I honestly don't know where he would be without Juice Plus. So that's my son's story.
Let me ask you briefly before you move on to yours. What was it in that moment when you said the doctors told you he's not going to be able to eat raw fruits and vegetables and very few cooked ones for about 6 months? What was it that made you say, well, that's not going to work?
Well, I had already, before he had the surgery, we were 7 months into this illness. So I was already doing a lot of researching and looking into what we needed to do to fix the problem that caused his initial problem, and then to figure out how to recover. And clearly that was nutrients. He needed nutrients. And it was clear to me now, looking back on his symptoms, not being able to gain weight, having some other issues, that he was nutrient deficient and was probably not absorbing nutrients very well because of his inflamed gut. And so I had Juice Plus, and so I did have access to some of that information and started learning more about this powerful thing I had in my hand that I did not realize I had. So, and when I tell my story, I'll talk a little bit more about that.
Sure. Go right ahead. Go ahead. And
hey, real quick side note. So my husband was put on statins for high cholesterol and blood pressure and a clogged renal artery, but they made him feel horrible. And after going to a boot camp, and I will say, Marsha Anderson, my dear friend Marsha Anderson, talked me into going to a boot camp. And this is where the light bulb came on. From fruits and vegetables are good for you, to fruits and vegetables can change the trajectory of your life. And I came home. I think they discussed the research topic on the high-fat meal and the constriction of the arteries. And I came home and I said, all right, trash the statins. We're going to go double on the berry and then regular and everything else. So 6 months later, he goes in. Cholesterol's still higher than the doctor wants. That's another story. But he said, Jay's like, I'm not going on that statin again. And so he had he said, well, let's just do a scan and see what's going on. Renal artery clear. So the doctor was like, great, that's fine. We can leave that alone. So that was an amazing story that I'm so thankful for, because I know so many people struggling with statins.
All right. So let me inject right here, because there may be people on this call who don't know yet what Juice Plus is. So for those of you that don't know, Juice Plus is literally whole, better than organic fruits and vegetables, dried at low temperatures to preserve the nutrition, powdered and put into a capsule for convenience of taking it. So go ahead, Debbie.
Yeah. And because of the way that Juice Plus is made, if you have a very sensitive gut, you can still use it because there's not a lot of fiber in there to break down. So that was why my son could use it. Fiber was the problem. He couldn't have any fiber 6 months, up to 6 months after his surgery. And so he was able to use the Juice Plus. So my story's a little longer. I'm going to try to condense it. Probably started at 2 or 3 weeks old when I had a severe bronchial infection. We'll go back to what Dr. Corson was talking about, strikes against you. And I was on high-powered antibiotics and didn't nurse for a couple of weeks. So strike 1, strike 2. And I really didn't seem to have a lot of issues until I got into my 20s, and one thing developed from another, chronic yeast infections. And then I developed interstitial cystitis, which was horribly painful issue. I started developing food allergies until I could only eat about 4 foods. And then I was tested for MS because I had MS type symptoms. I had Raynaud's, just things were just multiplying like crazy. But the doctors really didn't have a lot to offer me other than like low dose chemo. I did develop a inflamed rash from my neck down to my ankles. And they just didn't really know what to do for me. They even gave me an inflammatory test and nothing showed up. And so
Wow.
anyway, a friend took me and I started doing alternative treatments, and those were very helpful, but it was almost like I was cycling. I still couldn't quite get over it. And the second light bulb came when I saw a Tamara Sachs video, and she talked about the nutrition that is required to detox your body on a daily basis. And then if you've got chronic things, then you've got a lot of systemic stuff that has to be dealt with. And I just went, I do not have enough nutritional support to clear my body of all of these things. And so that was light bulb number 2. So I was taking Juice Plus, but I actually doubled it after that point, made a big difference for me. And I did start seeing a functional medicine doctor, found out I had Lyme, I have a systemic mold fungal issue, and I also have a systemic staph issue. So I am still in the midst of all of that. But the things that I have learned are that all of those conditions create so much free radical activity in your body that damages your organs and tissues and causes lots of issues. And so I know I need so much antioxidant support to get me through this protocol that I'm under. And I honestly do not know where I would be without the Juice Plus support that I have. I eat really well. I have a beautiful, lovely Tower Garden salad every day. I have my complete smoothie every day. I eat very well, but it's still not enough. And I just am so thankful for that nutrient dense support that my body has every single day. And then when I travel, when I can take it with me. So I'm super thankful for that. The other thing I'm thankful for is the community. And I'm going to stop right now and thank Dr. Corson. She doesn't even know me, but I have probably watched every video Dr. Corson has ever done. And it has been such a powerful help to me and my family in our healing journey, the information that we have gained from your presentations and your knowledge. And I just want to thank you for all of those presentations and all that you do to help support our community and give us the information we need. I have shared your videos with so many people, and it's really been helpful. And Ro, I've shared yours too, by the way.
Oh, Debbie, thank you for that wonderful acknowledgement. And, the community, I agree with you 100%. There's so many, really all caring people, and so many healthcare people like Dr. Tamara Sachs, who's a brilliant MD functional medicine expert in Connecticut for many, many years now. And we all do these things without being paid, and we help each other, and we contribute to education and support of each other, and we share that freely. So thank you for that. I loved hearing your story. And there's one thing I just wanted to say in case people are wondering about medication and using this nutrition. This is food, so there's basically no contraindication for using this food. It's classified as food. It has a United States Department of Agriculture label. The trio, so the berry blend, the vegetable blend, and the fruit blend, and those are used together. So that's 30 species that people get every day. And it's not instead of eating. We need to eat what's in our garden, our farmer's market, the grocery aisle. We need to eat it. It's necessary, but it's no longer sufficient. And part of that is it's picked way too early. It's trucked way too far. It's generally 2 weeks or more off the plant and away from the earth before we even get our hands on it. And then very often microwaved, and other problems that happen where it's not what our ancestors had. And so we need to fill in the gaps, and that's the point of Juice Plus. It's not instead of eating, it's to fill the gaps. And most people, their gut microbiome changes to the point where they just start wanting more plants, right? We've seen it before. And when I heard about that years ago, I was hard to believe until I saw it for myself with my own kids. But as those good germs come back more in control, they do give metabolic signals, and we do have our taste change to where we're wanting a salad or an apple instead of a donut, for example. And then you've really won the battle, because willpower is not enough, and willpower is often metabolic programming that's from our SAD, Standard American Diet, which is a problem. Or it doesn't work with our genes, who we are. It's just not the right foods for us. So the other thing I wanted to say about the statins, it's not necessary to stop any medication when you're, taking that with your physician's advice in order to start Juice Plus. It's not necessary to stop the other. But I hear what you did, and I totally understand that. The one thing I just want to share is that with the statins, it's interfering with the body's ability in the liver to synthesize cholesterol, which is a major building block for the messengers in our body and also for our brain. But the thing is that it also interferes with the synthesis of coenzyme Q10, which is a very important antioxidant that our liver makes for us, and particularly protects the heart muscle as it pumps for our whole life. So that's a problem. But the other thing to realize is that doctors want the best for us. They do. They're good people. They're very hardworking. They're very stressed. And in most med schools, they have not had a chance to have good nutrition at the frontier of proven research at this point around the world in human health and nutrition. But the real crux of the issue is it's oxidized LDL that hurts us. It is not native cholesterol. The natural cholesterol is the building block that we need. It's when it oxidizes, and it oxidizes instantaneously in people where they don't have a wide rainbow of antioxidants from their diet. And that's plants. That's the source. So the point is, if you're thinking about that, ask the doctor to do an oxidized LDL level, and it's widely available, and they will do that. Oxidized LDL is the key, and you don't want to be oxidizing. You want that level to be very, very low. And that's one of the first studies that was ever done. It's been replicated over and over with Juice Plus, different universities. There are now 48 peer-reviewed published studies on Juice Plus at major universities around the world. This is not done by the company. And there are more in the pipeline that are being done at universities. It's very exciting. So oxidized LDL, the body is able to, with this nutrition on board, greatly decrease the amount of oxidation in the bloodstream and to cholesterol. So oxidized LDL goes down, and that's a wonderful thing. So it's not necessarily the level that you see on a standard cholesterol panel, it's the oxidized portion. So I just wanted to clarify that. There's so much more that can be said about that, and I would refer people to any lecture by Dr. Tamara Sachs, whom you were mentioning, Debbie, and
don't even tell me 17.
Just ask the person who asked you, and they can get you that information.
17.
I did put in the chat one of my favorite resources, which is the Flipping book. It's a beautiful online summary of the research on Juice Plus, and that's in the chat. And you can also get that from the friend who shared this with you. So I'll stop right there, Nina.
Nina,
Thank
I wanted
you.
to, if I can, make 2 more points, and then I will be quiet.
Sure.
So one real quick is on the metabolic programming. My son, who was a wings and fries kid, now eats on the salad bar. Never thought it would happen. At college, eating on the salad. Yes. Second, I just want to encourage people. A lot of times we have these amazing stories that in 2 and 3 and 4 months that they saw these major improvements. I'm not that story. I'm a couple of years into my healing journey, but this is foundational nutrition. It's not going to change everything overnight, especially if you have as many things going on as I do. But I know that it is changing things a little by little every single day, and that my body would not have what it needs to do that changing without it. So I want to encourage people who are in a longer battle. It doesn't mean it's not working. It just means there's more to take care of, and it takes a little extra time.
Mhm. That's very
And
true.
Debbie, that is just beautifully said. Thank you. That's exactly right.
Dr. Corson, would you introduce your friend Kim?
I would be delighted to. Kim is on the call with us. Kim Davis from Ashland, Ohio, lives in a rural community. Absolutely wonderful person. Another of the great gifts of being in this community is the people we get to meet and become lifelong friends with. And Kim is retired now from years of working. She now works helping people get healthier. And one of the people she has helped so much is her own father, she loves so much, who's a farmer. And I'm going to let Kim tell her story because it's quite profound.
Hello, everybody. As Dr. Corson said, I live out in the middle of nowhere, and I love it. I would never live in town. But 7 years ago, pretty much this month, my dad had arthritis so bad, psoriasis all over him and everything. His nails were splitting and cracking. And I told my mom, I said, that's a vitamin deficiency of some sort. All the doctor says his blood work's fine. I said, well, Mom, you got to specifically ask for these things, Well, I went over there one day and Dad was just so, we call ornery, just snappy and just bad. And I said, Dad, what is wrong with you? Can't do nothing no more. He couldn't go out and do the chores because he had cattle out there and stuff, And he was just mean. And I'm thinking, is this what depression is? So I got him cherry pills because I did some research online, the dark cherry pills, and that didn't do no good. And then I got him another pill that didn't do no good. And then I told him he's going to start drinking vinegar, and he wanted to get better. So he was a really good patient, I guess you could call him. Well, then a friend of mine says, well, have you ever heard of Juice Plus? I said, well, where do I get that stuff? Oh, you got to call this lady down by Columbus. Okay. So I call her up and I explain what was going on with my dad. And she says, we don't make no medical claims, but she said, I really think it'll help your dad. I said, okay. So I ordered the Juice Plus, the trio, because that's all we had at that time. And his 4 months was up about Christmas time. And he took me out in the kitchen. And he said, hey, I'm about out of them pills you got me. And I said, well, what do you think, Dad? He said, I think they're starting to help. And I'm thinking, oh my goodness, I finally found something. So I called this lady back up again and I said, hey, I need more of that stuff. I said, it's starting to help my dad. And I said, would you do me a favor? She said, what? And I've never met this lady. I only talked to her on the phone one other time before. And she said, I said, would you come to my house and do like a Tupperware party and talk about this stuff?
Mhm.
And she said, absolutely. I said, you don't even know me. I might be a serial killer. She said, no, I trust you. So we coordinated it and I invited 7 of my friends and they all had different health issues. And 6 of them bought it that night. I got my first promotion. I wasn't even signed up to be a rep. And I said, I can't do this. I got a full-time job, And she said, they bought it from you. I said, no, you're the one who did all the talking. I don't know nothing about this stuff. She said, no, they trusted you. You're not going to lead them down the wrong path. I was just the catalyst in the middle. So she said, for $50 or whatever, you can sign up to be a rep. I said, I don't have internet. I don't have a cell phone. I don't have none of this stuff. I'm Amish out here in the middle of nowhere. She covered my business until she taught me how to copy and paste, and she taught me links and all these things, So I'm thinking, well, if I'm going to promote this stuff, I better start taking it myself. So in February, I signed up to get the trio myself. And I took it, pretty steady because I didn't have no health issues. But I said, I can't promote a product if I'm not part of the taking it, Well, that fall, my dad was back in the combining soybeans and picking corn. He's out every day doing his chores. He's 91 this past February. Is he 60 years old again? No. But mom and dad both, they take it every day. They live on their own. Dad does his chores. They go out and feed the cats. They mow their lawn. You know, I mean, they're very self-sufficient at this age. So to kind of carry on with what Dr. Corson said and Debbie said, in December of that year, I had this terrible, terrible pain in my back. It just, long story short, I ended up with a staph infection. And I learned a lot tonight that I did not know. I ended up with a staph infection and it collapsed my third disc in my back. And I was paralyzed from my chest down. I was in the hospital with liquid IVs of antibiotics for months. To this day, I take 2 antibiotics every day, 500 milligrams in the morning and 500 milligrams at night. And I just called the doctor again. I said, do I still have to be on these? He says, absolutely, because the infection was in my bones. Mm-hmm. And he said, I always be there. I have no arthritis. I have no asthma. I feel amazing. I don't take no cholesterol pills. I don't take no high blood pressure pills. I won't tell you how old I am. I'm old. But I worked 40 years in a factory running air guns and all that, and my hands are just good. I will never, ever be without Juice Plus. You know, it has changed my life. And when I was up in Toledo, backtrack a little bit, I had my son. I said, Adam, go to my house and bring me my Juice Plus. So I get up there and it's on my thing, and they all come in. They said, well, you can't bring pills into the hospital. We cover all your pills. I said, this is food. So they took it down to the dietitian and they said, go ahead, let her take that. I laid flat on my back for 30 days and I swallowed them Juice Plus every day, praying to God I didn't choke on them, you know, because I couldn't set up at all. But I think that it was really, really important that I healed. They said, your incision looks good. You know, you're going to walk again. I said, what do you mean I'm going to walk again? Well, we never thought you'd walk again. And I am walking. Wow. Thank you. I mean, it started out with my dad. And I'm so grateful for what it has done for him and my mom. And I'm just as grateful for what it's done to me. So I tell everyone, yeah. Life is good.
Amen. Oh, fantastic. What a wonderful story.
So special. And I just want to add to Kim's story that the diagnosis that her father had is called psoriatic arthritis. Mm-hmm. It's associated with psoriasis. Not all people with psoriasis will develop this arthritis called psoriatic arthritis, but when they do, it's a bear. It's very painful, very difficult autoimmune arthritis, psoriatic arthritis. And he was on meds that he needed that were immunosuppressants, and he got off of those as he got better. And I think his doctor was just very, very thrilled, and maybe didn't even know how that happened, but it did. And you see, how many years has he had now, Kim? 8 years of great life?
Yes. Mm-hmm. And his fingernails are good now. His psoriasis he has a flare up every now and then. And I think it's like everything's stress. They're farmers. And when it don't rain, if anybody's a farmer, you know how farmers get when it don't rain, you know, and they worry about it 24 hours a day until it does rain. But basically, he's good. He really is.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much, Kim. I mean, aren't these stories just so touching? Yes. And I wish every medical student could hear this, and every doctor and every nurse. So we'll just find out who wants to hear it, and they get to hear it.
I never knew that about C-sections.
Yeah, it's actually the three strikes. The 3 strikes are C-section, not being able to nurse, and the first antibiotic. Yeah. And it's nobody's fault, but it's just nice to know these things ahead of time so we can just support those people going through this. Because the only food that will really protect these babies or newborns, especially the first 6 to 12 months, is breast milk. It's the right microbiome feeder. It's the right probiotic and prebiotic food for them, the right brain food, the right immune system food. And when they can't, you just come up with the best formula you can. It's a far step away, but we don't make anybody wrong for that. And then at 6 months old, when babies start baby food, that's when we open the Juice Plus capsules, the trio, the berry blend, the fruit blend, and the veggie blend. And people can add that every day to the baby's food. And that's what we do for our grandchildren. And many pediatricians around the world recommend that. So at 6 months, not before 6 months, because their gut's not ready for plants yet. But at 6 months or 7 months, when that baby starts baby food, we just open the capsule. A lot of families will use a half a capsule a day and put the capsule back together and use the other half the next day, because it's so economical. In my family, we do the whole capsule. One whole capsule a day of the trio is what we do. But anyway, Nina, I know you have an incredible story to share.
Well, I do have a story to share, and I am going to share it, and then I have a question for you. I'm going to try and be brief because I really want to get to the answer to the question. But my story is that as I was growing up, all those strikes that you said, you have against you, I have almost all of them in my history. And in addition to that, I seem to have food sensitivities that resulted in a lot of sinus infections and repeated rounds of antibiotics. So that, of course, was even more strike against me. By the time I got into my 40s, all of it, and the fact that I did not eat well at all, really caught up with me, and in overblown inflammation that was so bad, I honestly wondered if I was dying, and the doctors didn't seem to know what was wrong with me. And I finally figured out that it was the way I was eating that was contributing to how I felt. So I changed the way I ate. I got down to where I was eating nothing but a little bit of meat, mostly fruits and vegetables. I cut out the bread, I cut out starchy foods, and no more sugar. That was a big deal for me. And eventually I cut out dairy when I discovered that dairy had actually been giving me a rash that I'd had for 25 years. And I didn't know what was causing it. When I cut out the dairy, the rash went away in 3 days. So I cut out all of those things, and all of my inflammatory symptoms improved. Now that I was still on the edge, because I recognized if I got the tiniest little bit of butter, if somebody brushed butter on my vegetables or whatever, within half an hour, I was breaking out in a rash again. So I was literally on the edge there. But I thought as long as I was very, very strict with what I ate, I could really control my symptoms. But you can't always control what happens to you. And in 2009, a spider bit me. And the theory is that it introduced a virus into my body that set up a chronic cascade of catastrophic inflammation in my whole body. And after many painful symptoms over a period of about 6 months, I finally started developing also abdominal pain. And my doctor put me in the hospital, and I had emergency surgery on Christmas Day, 2009. And when I woke up in the recovery room, pardon me, they informed me that they had to take my entire colon because it was so inflamed and perforated, they had not been able to save any of it. And now I had no ability to digest real food. The only thing I was allowed to eat was starchy foods that they were hoping would stay in me long enough to, get some nutrition out of it, although there's not really much nutrition in starchy foods. And I was on 13 pills a day, just trying to slow down my digestion so that I could get something out of what I ate. And as you can imagine, with your colon gone, well, there goes your whole microbiome. So for the next 3 years, I didn't get any better at all. I ended up having 2 more surgeries for blockages and to take down the ostomy that they had given me and reconnect what I had left. But I was still on all those pills trying to slow down my digestion, and everything I ate was going through me in 2 hours or less. And I was slowly starving to death. And when I realized that was happening, I prayed, because there is nowhere else to go except to God when the medical community cannot help you anymore. And when you're already doing everything you know to do, and there's nothing else you can do for yourself. So I asked God if there's a way for me to get the nutrition I know my body is craving in a manner my body can actually absorb. Please show me what it is. And the very next week, someone introduced me to Juice Plus. And it made sense to me, in part because it was 100% more fruits and vegetables than I was allowed to have at the moment. And I knew that's where all the nutrition was. So when I started taking it slowly over time, I started seeing improvements. I started seeing my hair come back in. My hair had fallen out because my body just couldn't support growing hair. I started seeing my muscle mass coming back. I had been so weak, I couldn't get up out of bed by myself. I couldn't even pick up a glass of water with one hand. And I started noticing that I was actually beginning to be able to digest food again. And slowly, I got my life back. And I was able to wean myself off of all those pills. And now I'm not on any prescriptions. And I ate a salad tonight for dinner. I can eat whole fruits and vegetables again. My food allergies have all but disappeared. I don't purposefully eat dairy, obviously, but if I happen to get some, I don't end up with a rash anymore. So the Juice Plus has literally changed my life for the better. And that's part of the reason I'm so eager to tell everyone about it, because I want everybody to be able to experience the kind of benefits, no matter what you're going through, that I've been experiencing myself. Now, Dr. Corson, my question for you, because you touched on autoimmune issues before, and we've heard from people now who have had infections like staph infections. I know a lot of us probably have experienced those moments where we feel like, gee, I feel like I catch everything that comes down the pike. So I always thought that was an underactive immune system, where we're catching everything because our immune system is just not able to fight it off. But then there's the autoimmune issues, which I always thought of as an overactive immune system. Is it possible to have both of those things going on at the same time?
Yes, in a sense, because it's all about precise immune function. So precise immune function is the secret to staying alive on this planet. And what I mean is the ability to fight each infection properly, to wage a good battle, and yet to control the inflammatory component, because our body makes inflammatory killer molecules to kill the things that need to be killed. For example, cancer cells need to be found and killed, and we have natural killer cells, NK cells, that do that. They do surveillance and killing aberrant cells that aren't behaving themselves. So they do it with killer molecules. Our body makes these for us. The same with infection. And so we have to do it in order to stay alive. That's our integrity. So we're not being, a place where things grow out of control that should not be. At the same time, we want to have a fine tuning of the inflammatory cascade. So there are certain illnesses in which it's more obvious that too much inflammation is the main problem. So chronic Lyme disease is one of those. The body is trying so hard to deal with these spirochete bacteria. And then it can, especially if people are having other challenges like heavy metal burden that interfere with everything, that they will have an abundant inflammatory response that actually does the main part of the injury to the brain, the nervous system, etc. And another example would be dengue fever, which is a virus. We'll see more of that as the climate warms. It's transmitted by mosquitoes. And actually, two of my sons have had that while traveling in Southeast Asia, both of them in the same area, but about a decade apart. They're different ages, and they were in Southeast Asia to do some work and study, very different years, but they both got dengue fever. And that is a virus where a second exposure to that is worse because there's an overabundance of inflammatory damage. So we really would like them to not get that again. But it's really all about fine tuning. And so that's what it is it's such an exquisite fine tuning that happens every moment. We want to support the body in doing what it knows how to do. There's so much that interferes today. Environmental toxins are very big. Stress is obviously creates our own internal molecules that are a problem because of dealing with the stress. And then really our hope is the foods that we eat, as well as our thoughts and our ability to be supported by each other. That's a huge part. Community, helping each other. But really the food that we eat impacts all of that. So plants are the answer. More plants. It's really, I like the term plant strong. Rip Esselstyn, who's a wonderful teacher, coined that term, be plant strong. It doesn't mean everybody has to be a strict vegan, but we need a lot of plants. So plant strong, I think, is a great way to think of it.
That's fantastic. All right, let me ask you one more question before I stop the recording and let everybody else ask their questions. And that is, you talked about the 3 strikes. You talked about other damage that is going on with us all the time. For those people, and I know everybody on this call is probably wondering, if you already have those strikes against you and you've had a lot of other damage that's been going on for years, is there any hope of you actually regaining your health fully?
Yes.
Or will you always be underperforming in that regard?
Yeah, it's a great question. There's a lot of hope, and really, the stories we've heard tonight are people who were really in a bad situation and had tremendous ability to recover, even in older age, very older age, like Kim's father, who's now 91. So it's really never too late, as long as you have the ability to eat something, to accept some kind of food if your body's able to do that. If you have the will to live, that's a whole other thing. And that's, I think, between a person and their God and their family. There are times, I've had people say, we just want Grandpa to live so much and we want to make him, eat this Juice Plus, and yet find out Grandpa has lost his wife he loved of 50 years. And that's a decision, that's a sacred place. I'm not even going to go there. I don't know if I'm going to shove Juice Plus down his throat, because it's for people who want to live, if that makes sense. And it really does help people stay longer, in my experience, physiologically. So we want to just match, listen to where people are. But yes, there's always almost always some hope left. Absolutely.
All right. Well, thank you, Dr. Corson, so much. And I want to thank all of you for being on this call. Stick around, because when I stop the recording, one of the things I'm going to ask Dr. Corson is, are there alternatives that we can use from the plant world to some of the drugs, and particularly the antibiotics? And we're going to hear her answer after I stop this recording. But right now, I want to give you the opportunity to say thank you to Dr. Corson before I stop the recording, because I really want everybody, even on the recording, to be able to hear how much we appreciate you.
Thanks, Nina. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Corson.
You're welcome. It's great to be with you.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Always
much,
learn
Candace.
something. Thank you very much.
All right,
so
to all of
welcome.
you.
Thank you, Dr. Corson. I appreciate every time you talk. I'm going through my healing process now, and all of you are serving a great, great purpose. So thank you all. Thank you, Nina.
Oh, you're
Thank you,
welcome.
Linda.
Thanks,
Y'all
Nina.
stick around for the other questions, but for those of you on the recording, if you are interested in getting Juice Plus for yourself, then all you need to do is ask the person who invited you to this call, and they can tell you how. And thank you for joining us.